Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Clark, research analyst for Money and Markets with your Money Markets Week Ahead, what to watch on Wall Street. This is a big week for investors as the third quarter earnings season kicks off this week. The financial sector will start things off on Tuesday. There are no earnings scheduled for Monday due to Columbus Day. But here are some other things you need to watch if you're an investor on Wall Street. On the IPO front, a massive solar company plans its initial public offering this week. Array Technologies plans to launch its IPO on October 14th or 15th. The company will trade on the NASDAQ under the ticker ARRY. Array Technologies has been in the business for about 30 years, making ground-mounted systems that are used in solar energy products. Now, it manufactures a system that includes steel supports, electric motors, gearboxes, and electronic controllers that are referred to as single-axis trackers. Basically, what these are is these things move solar panels throughout the day to provide maximum connection to the sun and increase energy production of the panel. So it lies underneath the solar panel, and it moves the panel back and forth as the sun moves around the Earth. Now, in the 12 months ending June 30th of 2020, the company reported revenue of about $975 million. The Albuquerque, New Mexico company is offering 33.8 million shares at a price range of about $19 to $21 per share. The company is looking to raise about $675 million with its IPO. If you use the midpoint of $20 per share, Array Technologies could have a market value of around $2.5 billion, according to Renaissance Capital. Bookrunners for the IPO include Goldman Sachs, also JPMorgan, Morgan Stanley, Credit Suisse, Barclays, and UBS Investment Bank. Array said they plan to use the proceeds from the IPO to repay debt, increase its working capital, and pay into operating expenses and capital expenditure. Now, my thought bubble on this is actually a really good time for solar companies, despite the political climate and market headwinds and things like that. The Solar Energy Industries Association estimates that about 90,000 U.S. solar installations combined between utility companies, residential and non-residential for 2020. That's up from about 73,000 total installations in 2019. As of 2019, there's close to about 250,000 Americans working in the solar industry, which is pretty solid, and it doubles the number from 2012. The industry has generated about $18.7 billion of investment into the American economy in 2019. Now, as I said, this is also a big earnings week. The financial sector will kick off third quarter earnings season this week. Several big banks and investment houses will be reporting, such as Citigroup, JPMorgan and Chase, Bank of America, U.S. Bancorp, Wells Fargo, Citizens Financial Group, and State Street, as well as BlackRock, will all be reporting this week. The financial sector had a bit of a tough go in the second quarter, with earnings only being boosted by investment activities of those banks. So basically, their traditional banking operations weren't making money, but their investment activity actually did, and it boosts earnings up slightly. Now, according to FactSet, the estimated earnings decline for the S&P 500 is minus 21% for the third quarter. And if that holds true, it'll be the second largest year-over-year decline in earnings reported by the index since the second quarter of 2019. One bright spot, however, is that 45 S&P 500 companies have actually reported positive earnings guidance for the quarter, while 22 reported negative earnings guidance. Now, in terms of the financial sector, I think we'll see similar results this quarter as we did in the second quarter. Earnings will be boosted by investment activity and not necessarily from traditional banking operations. Overall, I think we'll see stronger earnings in the third quarter, but it'll be relatively muted this time around. Over the course of the quarter, I think the S&P can gain around 10%. Over the course of the quarter. It gained about 8.5% in the second quarter, and that's even with a presidential election in the fold coming up in November. Your data dump, there's really no big data, no data expected on Monday due to Columbus Day. However, this week is going to be filled with outlooks on the manufacturing industry in various regions. The Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia will release its Manufacturing Business Outlook Survey for October on Thursday morning. It's a monthly survey of manufacturers in the 3rd Federal Reserve District, which includes Eastern Pennsylvania, Southern New Jersey, and Delaware. Now, in September, a current activity index fell 2 points to 15, but it was the 4th consecutive month of positive readings. A reading above 0 indicates positive sentiment. The survey indicated that manufacturers in the district were relatively optimistic about higher production moving into the 3rd and 4th quarters. Likewise, on Thursday morning, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York will release its Empire State Manufacturing Survey. This is a monthly survey of manufacturers in New York State. In September, the survey registered a 17, indicating manufacturers were somewhat positive about the state of manufacturing in the state. Like the Philly Index, a reading above 0 indicates positive sentiments. The data dump will continue on Thursday when the Department of Labor will release its initial continuing jobless claims. This is something that's watched every week. Last week, claims were around 840,000. This was higher than the estimate of 825,000. It signals that our economic turnaround is moving a bit slower than we anticipated. Investors are going to be prepping for the next gross domestic product or GDP estimate for the third quarter. The forecast is for 31% growth in GDP. The second quarter, the GDP fell 31%. And the next GDP forecast, that's expected in a couple weeks on October 29th. Now, again, earnings are going to be really anchored by financial sector this week, but there are several companies reporting earnings to start off the third quarter. On Monday, there are no earnings due to Columbus Day. On Tuesday, you've got Citigroup Incorporated, JPMorgan Chase & Company, and Johnson & Johnson, which I think could be an interesting earnings report to see considering Johnson & Johnson's play into the coronavirus vaccine development. On Wednesday, Bank of America Corporation, U.S. Bank Corp., and Wells Fargo Incorporated will have their earnings. Thursday, Home Bank Shares Incorporated, Morgan Stanley, and drug pharmacy powerhouse Walgreens Boots Alliance will have their earnings. That will also be very interesting just to kind of get a feel for a little bit of the retail sector, since Walgreens does kind of dabble in retail a little bit, but it's more known as a pharmacy company. On Friday, we've got Ally Financial, Bank of New York Mellon, Citizens Financial Group, State Street Corporation, all having earnings. So again, it's going to be a relatively big week for earnings, and investors are going to be keeping a very, very close eye on what those earnings tell us, especially for the financial sector. That will usually kind of kick things off to give us an indication as to what we can expect over the course of third quarter earnings. It's just a start, but again, the financial sector did have some kind of difficulty. I expect that we're going to see some upward movement in earnings, but it's not going to be nearly as much as as we've seen over the last several quarters before the coronavirus. I think the S&P is going to gain, but those gains are going to be relatively the same as the second quarter, even with a presidential election in the fold, which will move markets a little bit, but not nearly as much as you might expect. There's a common misnomer that a presidential election, depending on who wins, whether it's a Democrat or Republican, will vastly alter the course of the market. And that's not necessarily the case. So they do play off of one another a little bit, but not nearly as much as you might think. So we've got a big week ahead of us. Certainly glad that you have stayed tuned. You've tuned into our week ahead to what to watch on Wall Street. We've got much more coming up this week. Well, the marijuana markets update. Stay tuned. I'm going to give you my next cannabis watch list pick coming up this week. So you want to make sure you're into that. It's on our YouTube channel. The Bull and the Bear podcast will also be coming out as well. Make sure that if you are on YouTube, you subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking the subscribe button. Also, click the little notification bell, and that will make sure that you are notified every time we release a new video. We've got some new stuff in the process that we're working on. My team and I have actually been strategizing about this over the last several weeks. I think we've got some really good ideas for you that will make YouTube more expansive and even more enjoyable for you. So make sure you stay tuned for all that. Also, log into moneymarkets.com each and every day. We try to provide you safe and sound investment information so you can make the best decisions for your investment that you can possibly make. So hope everyone has a great start to the trading week. And until next time, everyone, safe trading.